Hi guys. All right, it's math time. So turn to page 519 in your book. If you didn't send me 517 and 518, please do that, okay? Today we're going to we will need our fraction strips, so make sure you have your fraction strips ready. And we are going to compare fractions with the same numerator. Now the denominator is going to be different, okay? So let's look on page 519. Marcos is at the Athena's cafe. He can sit at a table with 5 of his friends or a different table with 7 of his friends. The same size spinach pie is shared equally among the people at each table. At which table should Marcus sit to get more pie? Okay. So there will be 6 friends sharing pie A, because you have to remember that Marcus is there as well if he decides to go there. And there will be 8 friends sharing pie B if he decides to sit there. Okay. So we need to compare whether 1/6 or 1/8 of a pie would be more pie for Marcus. Okay. So why don't you get a crayon or a marker, whatever you have, because we're going to do some shading. Okay, here are the pies. Here's the one that's split into 6ths, and this one is split into 8ths. So it says shade 1/6 of pie A. Okay, so 1/6 would be one of these slices. So go ahead and shade in 1/6. I'm just going to shade around my number because that way you can see it. Okay, and shade 1/8 of pie B. So shade in 1/8 of pie B. Okay, so 1/8 of pie B, 1/6 of pie A. Now let's look at the pieces. Okay, which piece is bigger? Which piece is larger? Okay, so 1/6 would be larger. So if I put my numbers down here, I would see that 1/6 is larger than 1/8. So Marcus should sit at the table with 5 friends, because 5 and then him would make the 6th, right? If he wants a bigger piece of pizza, he needs to sit at the table with 6, a total of 6 people. Marcus and his 5 friends. Okay? All right. So let's go down to the bottom there. It says, which pie has more pieces? Is it part pie A or pie B? Which one has more pieces? Pie B does. So put a B there for number 1. The more pieces a whole is divided into, look at this size of piece and this size of piece. So the more pieces, the smaller the pieces are going to be. So the more pieces of the whole is divided into, the smaller the pieces are. Number 2, which pie has fewer pieces? Pie A has fewer pieces. It only has 6. Okay, the fewer pieces a whole is divided into, the larger the pieces are. Okay, so the larger the pieces are. Let's take a look at, let me put this down, and I'm going to move my camera, so just bear with me so you can see my fraction strips over here. So let's take a look at our fraction strips here, okay, on my wall. All right, now notice they're all the same length, right? All the strips are the same length, just like your fraction strips. And if you were to do this with your fraction strips, you'll see the same thing. Okay, so what happens? If I just look at unit fractions, that means my numerator, is a 1. If I just look at one piece of every fraction strip, look what happens. So here's a whole, okay, that's the whole thing. Here's a half, 1/2. That means I'm sharing with 2 people, right? 2 of us are sharing. Then I add another person. Look what happened to my piece. It got smaller. Okay, let's add another person. If there's 4 of us, look at how small my piece got. What if there's 5 of us? Smaller yet. What about 6? Yeah. 7, 8, 9, 10. As the denominator goes up, look, denominators 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The pieces get smaller, okay? So as the denominator grows and gets larger, the pieces get smaller, okay? So the more people that you're dividing something into, okay, that means the smaller the pieces are going to be. So if I say to you, we're going to share a pie, okay, between the 11 of us, since there's 10 of you and me is 11, okay, I'm going to cut kind of small pieces, aren't I? What happens if there were only 5 of us? My pieces are going to get bigger, right? Okay, so the larger the denominator, the smaller the piece, okay? The larger the denominator, the smaller the piece, okay? All right, so keep that in mind. Let's go to page 520. Page 520, so this page right here, okay? All right, so on Saturday, the campers paddled 2/8 of their planned route down the river. On Sunday, they paddled 2/3 of their route down the river. On which day did the campers paddle farther? All right, so we have to compare 2/8 and 2/3. So I need my 1/8 strip and I need my 1/3 strip. Okay, so we're going to compare these. All right. Now we don't have to do anything in our book. Just get your 1/8 strip and your 1/3 strip. Okay. Now remember what we talked about. They need to be flush on the left side. They need to be equal. Okay. Don't put one out here or one out there. They have to be equal or this isn't going to work. So equal, make sure they're the same. Okay. Right at the right spot. And 2/8 would be here. And 2/3 would be here. Okay, so 2/3 is at this finger and 2/8 is at this finger. Okay, so if I'm going to compare 2/8 and 2/3, what would I say? 2/8 is less than 2/3. Okay, so in this spot here, write 2/8 less than, make the less than sign, 2/3. Okay. All right. So the campers paddled farther on which day? Well, the farther one was the bigger one, 2/3. So you have to look at which one said 2/3, and it was Sunday. Okay. So they paddled the farthest on Sunday. All right. And if we look at those fractions, oops, let me erase my board. Okay, so if I look at those fractions, 2/8 and 2/3, and we said that 2/8 is less than 2/3. Okay, now remember, if your numerators are the same, look at your denominators. Okay, 8 and 3. Now this is going to be the tricky part. Okay, you have to think that these are pieces, and the more pieces, the smaller they are. So 8, when it's a denominator, is smaller than a 3 when it is a denominator. Okay, thirds is going to be a lot bigger than eighths. So if I have thirds, there's my thirds. If I have eighths, there are my eighths. Look at how small this piece is compared to this big piece, right? Okay, so you have to kind of think differently when we are comparing denominators. This only happens when your numerators are the same, okay? So 2/8 is less than 2/3 because 8 is a denominator, and that means I have 8 pieces out of the whole, and thirds is the denominator. It means I have 3 pieces out of the whole, which means my 3 pieces are going to be bigger. Okay, my piece out of the thirds is going to be a lot bigger than one of my pieces out of the eighths. Okay, I know that can be a little confusing, but you kind of have to really think about it. Okay, and kind of picture yourself with 7 other people, 8 counting you, and then compare yourself with 2 other people, and then plus you would be 3. Which one would give you more? right? The thirds would give you more than the eighths, okay? All right, so let's go down to the bottom, okay? Use reasoning. For her class party, Felicia baked 2 trays of snacks that were the same size. After the party, she had 3/4 of the carrot snack and 3/6 of the apple snack left over. Was more carrot snack or more apple snack left over? Well, we're going to compare 3/4 and we're going to compare 3/6. Let's try to do this without using our fraction strips. Okay, let's just think about it. So let's think about the problem. Let me try blue. Okay, so we're comparing 3/4 and 3/6. So 3/4 and 3/6. All right, so now you got to remember, since the numerators are the same, we need to look at the denominators in our problem, okay? Now, think about what we just talked about. Look in the green box. The more pieces a whole is divided into, the smaller the pieces are. So the more people you share with, the smaller your pieces are. The fewer pieces of a whole is divided into, the larger the pieces are. So the fewer pieces a whole is divided into, the larger the pieces are. So if there's just 2 of you, you're going to get a pretty big piece compared to if there were 6 of you, okay? All right, so if I look at my fourths, okay, and say I'm going to divide it into fourths, and I'm going to divide into sixths, okay? Look at one of these fourths and look at one of these sixths. Which one is bigger? Yeah, the 1/4 is, right? So if I have my numerators the same, if I have 3 of these fourths, that's going to be a lot more than 3 of these sixths. Okay, so it's going to be larger. 3/4 is larger than 3/6. So if I show you and color in all 3 of these fourths, okay, and I color in 3 of these sixths, you can see that 3/4 is a lot bigger than 3/6, okay? And I know that I don't even have to draw a picture. Once you get used to doing these, and when you're looking at a denominator, you have to think that the bigger number is smaller, okay? I know we've always talked about the bigger number being larger, okay? That's how we normally think of numbers. However, when they're denominators, we have to think the opposite, okay? So when my numerators are 3 and I look at my denominator saying 4 and 6, I got to know that I'm looking at a denominator and it's how many pieces of something. The less the number is, the larger the piece is going to be, okay? So that's why fourths is greater than sixths, okay? I know it's a little tricky, but you got to think of it a little differently than we do with normal numbers, okay? All right, so let's finish that at the bottom there. 1/4 is larger than 1/6 because there are fewer pieces, right, in the 1/4. So 3/4 is greater than 3/6. So there was more of the carrot snack left over, okay? All right, let's go to page 521. 521. All right, so let's take a look at the top there. Let me erase my board here. We'll do some of these together. All right, so shade the models to show 1/6 and 1/4. All right, so you have your models there. Grab a crayon, and we're going to shade. So we have 1/6. Okay. You hear my dog in the background? God, that was horribly done. Let me try that 6th again. All right, if we split it in half, and then we have to make a big X. And make sure my pen writes. There we go. All right, so we have 1/6 and 1/4. So shade in 1/6, shade in 1/4. Okay. How will I compare these? So 1/6 is what to 1/4? 1/6 is less than 1/4. Good job, okay? My ones in my numerator are the same, so I compare my denominators, and I have to think 6 is less than fourths. You're not saying 6 is less than 4. You're saying 6th is less than fourths, okay? Since they're denominators, all right? Okay. Let's do numbers 2 and 3, and actually let's do 4 as well, okay? If you want to try them on your own, you can right now. 1/8, 1/3, while I write them down. And then we have 3/4 and 3/8. And we have 2/6 and 2/3. All right, so here we go with number 1. Okay. Oops, sorry. Actually, that's number 2. Okay, so number 2. 1/8 is what to 1/3? All right, well, think. My numerators are the same, so I got to look at my denominators, eighths and thirds. If I split something into eighths, are my pieces going to be big or small? They're going to be smaller, right? If I divide something into thirds, they're going to be a pretty good chunk, right? So which one's less than? 1/8 is less than 1/3. Okay, let's go to number 3. 3/4 and 3/8. So 3's are the same, my numerators are the same. So now I can compare my denominators. So if I have fourths and I have eighths, think which one's going to be smaller, which one's going to be bigger? Good, the fourths are going to be bigger. So 3/4 is larger, greater than 3/8. Let's look at number 3. 2/6, 2/3. Well, my numerators are the same, okay? So I look at my denominator. If I divide something into sixths and I divide something into thirds, which one's going to be larger? The thirds are, right? So 2/6 is less than 2/3, okay? If you're struggling with these, then use your fraction strips. That's fine too, okay? So let's go to 2/6 and 2/3, the one we just did. So get your thirds out and get your sixths out, okay? Make sure, oh, that one's kind of broken too. I'll have to fix that one. Make sure that your fraction strips are all the way equal on the left side, or it's not going to work. So I need 2/6 stops here and 2/3 stops here. So how would I compare that? 2/6 is less than 2/3. And that's what we said before. Okay? All right, guys. So I want you to do numbers 5, 6, and 7. Pause the video and do numbers 5, 6, and 7. All right, guys. So you should have 5, 6, and 7 completed. Let's look at number 5. 4/8 is less than 4/4. Number 6, 3/6 is equal to 3/6. And number 7, 8/4 is greater than 8/8. Very good. Okay, that one was tricky. I don't like how they throw in those fractions greater than. So what do they have? They have 8/4 and they have 8/8. All right, so let's take a look at this one, okay? Yeah, our numerators are the same. Our denominators are different. So if I divide something into fourths and I divide something into eighths, which one's going to be bigger? Okay, the fourths are. So we got that. We can still look at it that way, but let's take a look at it even in depth, even more depth, okay? So 8/4. Remember we talked, that's a fraction greater than 1. When the numerator is greater than the denominator, it's greater than 1. What does 8/8 equal? Equals 1, right? So if I know that, and I know that this is a fraction greater than 1, I don't even have to know what that actually means, okay? I just know that that's greater than 1. It's a fraction greater than 1 because my numerator is bigger than my denominator. And I know that this is 1. I know automatically that that's going to be greater than 1, okay? All right. They always have to throw in one of those difficult ones, right? All right, let's hop down to on your own. So I want you to do numbers 8 to 13. Okay, again, pause the video and do numbers 8 through 13. Okay, go ahead and pause. All right, let's go over them. So 1/3 is greater than 1/4, okay? So if I break something into thirds and I break something into fourths, which one's going to be bigger? My thirds, right? So 1/3 is greater than 1/4. Number 9, 2/3 is greater than 2/6. Okay, now remember this. Remember, you can only do this when the numerators are the same. If they have numerators different and denominators are different, that's a whole different way to do it, okay? All right, so number 9, 2/3 is greater than 2/6. Number 10, 4/8 is less than 4/2. Number 11, 6/8 is less than 6/6. Number 12, 1/6 is less than 1/2. And number 13, 7/8 is equal to 7/8. Okay? All right, let's go to page 523. 523. So we're going to talk about some of these, and then I'm going to have you do these on your own and send me the picture, okay? All right, so the picture in number 1 is right there to help you. So you can use that. So we have to say if these fractions are greater than, less than, or equal. So number 1 says 1/8 is less than 1/2. And you can easily see that in the picture. Okay? It easily shows you that in the picture. If you need to draw a picture, go ahead and draw a picture. If you need to use your fraction strips, use your fraction strips. If you can do it by thinking about the denominator, and the bigger the denominator, the smaller the piece, okay? If you can think of that, then do it that way as well, okay? So number 2, let's do number 2 together. 3/8 is what to 3/6? Well, I have eighths and I have sixths. So which one's going to be bigger pieces? The sixths are. So you would say 3/8 is less than 3/6. All right, I want you to do up to number 9. And then let's take a look at number 10. All right, we'll do number 10 together. All right, it says Javier is buying food in the lunch line. The tray of salad plates is 3/8 full. The tray of fruit plates is 3/4 full. Which tray is more full? All right, so on the line, we have to compare our fractions. So we have 3/8 and we have 3/4. So write these two on the line and let's compare them. Numerators are the same, so I look at my denominators. If I have eighths and I have fourths, which one's going to have bigger pieces? The fourths are, right? So I would make my sign like that. 3/8 is less than 3/4. Let's go back to the question. Which tray is more full? That would be our 3/4. So figure out which one is 3/4. Fruit plates. So you write fruit plates on the line. So I want to see all this on your line, okay, when you take your picture. And do number 11 on your own. Number 12, you do not have to do. Cross out number 12. And then let's turn the page to the back side. Okay, so page 524, if I can get a hold of my paper. Okay, this page here. All right, it says... well, I'm not going to read them to you. You're going to do these on your own. So the first two are just like we talked about. And then do numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6. Show your work wherever it is needed. Okay? Make sure you have labels. And make sure you take pictures. So I want a picture of 523. And I have a picture of 524. Okay, guys? All right. Remember, any questions, let me know. All right. Good luck, guys. Have fun.